Hey there folks, welcome back to another video. Today, we're taking a look at another Marvel Legends figure. And as you can see, it is the Daredevil Born Again Daredevil. We just took a look at the Punisher yesterday. However, I was kind of right in the middle of being sick. I'm still sick right now, but I feel like I was having a harder time talk yesterday, so I'm not entirely sure if I'll upload that video or not. However, this one's definitely a little bit more doable. I'm feeling a little bit better today, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, here you can see the box with the Daredevil on the side. Different picture of Daredevil, which is actually, let me grab it. It's actually a little bit different than the Punisher packaging, because the Punisher packaging used the same picture of Punisher for all sides, whereas this one uses two different images of Daredevil. So I think that's pretty cool. Oh, you can't see that, can you? So yeah, you get a little bio on the back. And a couple of different languages there. You get some legal information down here and at the bottom. And get the window carrying over to the side, which I think is cool if you want to place it on the shelf like that. So yeah, let's go ahead and open this guy up. We got one little tiny piece of tape right there. And I am liking these boxes more and more. I don't want to rip it. I do have another one of these guys on the way, and then I have another one on pre-order from Big Bad Toy Store, and one of them is going to stay in the packaging. You get a little New York little Hell's Kitchen background right there, which is pretty cool. But I have one on pre-order from Big Bad Toy Store, so I can keep it in the box. And right here you see the little legal information. Look at that guy right there. So, as you can see, as you've been hearing other people say, the accessory is a little bit sparse. You get the batons, or the billy clubs, whichever you'd like to call them, an extra pair of hands, and one cable. So, and of course we get the beautiful figure. Alrighty, so we got this guy out of the packaging, and I messed around with him just a little bit. And I already had some thoughts going into this figure. Or going into this review, rather. I had some of my own thoughts that I wanted to add to the conversation, as well as regurgitating some of the things that I've heard some other people say that I agree with. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm very excited about this guy. I'm very happy with him thus far. And I think just right out of the packaging, right off the bat, he's a better figure than the original one that we got. I think that one's not really... or I don't think that is really in question. I like the detail on the batons. I think that's really cool. You even get the little button right here. I like the silver paint, although it doesn't really continue on the ends the way that you would want. Especially since if you put these in the way that they're supposed to go... Actually, no, that's not correct. They do go up. They do go in this way, so that I guess that's not that huge of a deal. But the silver paint not being on the ends is a little... annoying. This one, I mean, they do technically have it. You can't see that. They do technically have it on there. It's just a little bit worn off. The other side, it's basically non-existent. But yeah. Where was I? Oh yeah, so I do like all the detail that's on the billy clubs and stuff. I like what we're seeing there. The one thing that I would say was nice with the original version was the size of them. And I do have them right here. However, these ones have been painted, so keep that in mind. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them out. Well, you know, I'll just leave them in there. So this is a custom figure that I've been working on. And you can see right here that they're a little bit more narrow. Come on, man. Let's get some focusing here. They're a little bit more narrow and also a little shorter, which I prefer. So the downside of that is that if they would have done them this size, then they wouldn't have been able to use the cord. So I guess that's kind of up to personal preference. For me, I prefer this size. And if we had gotten this size, we still could have connected the two. But with this one, they were able to use the cord in between. Now for me, I prefer this. But these ones are better detailed. So, I don't know. It's nice that we have the option now. Like, if you want to use these ones with this figure, I'm sure you could. However, I'm not going to do that. This figure is a custom that is in the works. And I did do some videos, or I was in the works of doing some videos on it, but the videos that I had going for a couple of my customs, for some reason, all of the audio was messed up on them. So, you know, unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the plan that I had wanted to do. That one's almost done, and you guys will be getting an update for that soon enough. But, yeah, as far as the billy clubs go, I like the look of the new ones. I just prefer a little bit of a thinner one. These ones are thinner than what we get with the comic book ones, which is nice because these are just outlandish. Like, you can see these are a lot bigger than these ones, and then this one was bigger than the old one. So the old ones were just a nice size. The old Netflix ones, that is. As far as the holder goes, this is very accurate to what we see in the show. The old one was too big, and it was actually upside down. So with mine, I actually removed it, cut it down, and then put it facing the right way. So if you watch Daredevil season 1 and 2, this is how it's supposed to go. But then I think if you watch Echo, it's upside down. It's stupid. I don't know. Also, if you look at like the prop store and that, when they set the figure up, or they set the costumes up with the billy club holder, they put it upside down. But yeah, I like this one. I also like that these go to an angle. I think that's very natural looking. The old Netflix one doesn't have that sculpt detail. I love the texturing throughout the costume. I think that's really cool. One of the things that I was unsure about was this lighter gray color here. I didn't recall seeing that on the costume. However, I was working on customizing my Punisher, and I was looking at some of the set photos, and I did see that there is this kind of grayish color on the suit. And they did almost a perfect job replicating it, except in a couple of areas, it's a little inaccurate. This color right here of the fabric is actually closer to this color than it would be with this. And then also, like, this area right here is a rubber piece on the suit. That should be the same color as these and stuff like that. But for the most part, they did a really nice job. Now, there's some smaller details that I could go in and do myself, which I will do at some point. One of the things I would have liked to have seen them add is some of the silver detailing, like these Ds right here, which were a part of the original costume. They had those little D buckles. Those should be silver. There's some parts on the gauntlets here that should be silver. These ones right here. And there's some other spots that are supposed to be silver too, but I'm not sure what those are. They might be the buckles of this. I don't recall right off the bat. So yeah, as far as detailing goes, those are some of the things that I would have liked to have seen them add. Just a little bit more paint, of course. But I really like the way that they laid down what is here. It looks clean. Like through the camera and then through my own eyes right now, I'm not really seeing anything that sticks out, any blemishes. Excuse me. One thing I would like to add, actually, hold on a second. We're already kind of quite a bit into the runtime here. The things that other people are saying, the accessories, you know, we get one fist and one open hand. I agree, there should be either two fists or two full pairs of each hand. I prefer... I don't know. I generally do museum posing. But if I were going to pose this figure around, I prefer having a splayed out hand. I prefer having that idea over just two fists, I would say. But then again, you know, the Netflix style Daredevil, you see him doing a lot more punching and kicking over, you know, throwing his baton through the air. So that's kind of just up to personal preference. I would say that I would prefer two fists, but I like having action hands like this. So the best option, of course, is having two of each hand. Now, that's something you've heard a lot of people say. The other thing that you're hearing a lot of other people talk about is the ab articulation, which you can see. does not go down that far, and then of course it is a bit ugly. I agree with that. The other thing is the boot cut. Normally a boot cut's not something that I'm too worried about. With the Punisher video, I did mention that it would be nice to have it. I think it's much more important for Daredevil than it is Punisher, I would say that. So the fact that it's already a separate piece and it's not a boot, I agree with that as well. And the other thing is I would have liked to have seen an angry expression. Now, the one thing is, or the one problem is we're most likely going to see Hasbro reuse this suit. He's wearing this exact same costume in Born Again Season 2, except it's black. So if they give us an angry expression, we're not going to be able to use it for this figure because it's going to be a black helmet. So that's a little unfortunate. Maybe in Season 2 of Born Again, we see him revert back to this costume and it has a double D on it. So maybe that's an excuse for Hasbro to give us this figure again with a yelling expression. The fact that it is not with this one is a little bit of a bummer because like I was saying with Punisher, that one's actually mid-customization, so I'm going to hold off on showing that. What I was saying in that video is Punisher's going to have his own presentation, which he does have a different outfit in that, but he's going to be in Born Again Season 2, the special presentation, and Spider-Man Brand New Day. So there's 3 things that's coming out next year where they can give him a yelling expression for that figure. I don't know if Daredevil's going to be that lucky because we don't know if he's in Born Again in costume, or we don't know if he's in Brand New Day in costume, and we don't know if he's going to revert back to this suit by the end of Daredevil Season 2. So I don't know what they're going to do with that. We just might not get it, which is unfortunate. The thing that I think is a bigger deal is the fact that there is an existing Matt Murdock figure that came out recently. And I actually can't remember for sure if the last Hasbro Daredevil figure was this one or if it was that Matt Murdock figure. I'm not sure which one's more recent because that Matt Murdock figure came out in 2023. My mind wants to go to 2021 because that's when No Way Home came out, but that figure came out in 2023. So again, I'm not sure if that's more recent than this one or not, but either way, it's one of the 2 last Daredevil figures, and the fact that that head cannot fit on this figure is the biggest crime that they've committed here, in my opinion. Now, obviously, you know, I don't expect them to make universal accessories for every single figure, but the fact that you're creating a Matt Murdock figure and 2 years later you make a Daredevil figure of the same version of Daredevil and the parts aren't interchangeable, that's a real problem for me. I think that it limits you so much. It also, you know, Hasbro, you know, would get a lot of pat on the backs from a lot of different reviewers and customizers too, but collectors, they'd get a lot of pats on the back if they would have just done that. You know, people have been like, oh, you know, this one doesn't come without a masked head, but at least you can use the other one. They didn't even make it so you could do that, so that's a problem for me. So as far as the other problems that people have, I agree with that. A couple of my own are, well, I've heard some people mention the unmasked head, but that one's a big one for me. The unmasked head not working for this figure is a problem. The lack of an interchangeable head is a problem for me. And I would have liked to seen some more detailing throughout the costume, some more painted areas. That's not as big of a deal because I'm a little bit biased, as I've said in previous videos. I like the ability to paint those details myself. So them leaving it blank gives me the ability to do that. So yes, as far as the accessories go, I think this one's pretty cool. I like this. And I like the detailing on the batons and stuff. I agree with the hands and all that. Some other of my own critiques. I have actually seen somebody else mention this. These little tiny feet. I think it was Shartimus Prime that I've seen mention it first. I'm not sure. But these little tiny feet are insane. From every other perspective, they actually look pretty good. I don't think that's too bad. Now, they're not supposed to be boots. They're supposed to be athletic sneakers with a shin guard. So I don't expect them to be really big. But the fact that, you know, it's just a continuous, like, you know, it just gets narrower as it goes. It really reminds me of, like, the DC animated universe, like the Bruce Timm DC stuff. That's what it looks like to me. with the really small ankles and the really small feet. But yeah, so I think that's a little silly. As far as the print tech on the face goes, I think it looks better in person than it does on the reviews. When you got some of these guys that have really good cameras, and you zoom in there, you can really start to see those lines. If I'm able to back up here, I don't know. I always find it harder to use this phone for reviews, for figure reviews, over using it for doing videos on my masks. It's always a lot harder to get a good, clean look. All right, now there's been a whole lot of ranting here, and I apologize for that because I actually do like this figure, and I'm not as, hung up on some of the smaller details like other people are. Now that's not to say there's any problem with that, but I buy figures to work on them, so I'm biased. Things will not negatively affect me as much as they will other people. I'm always looking for a project. Now, it'd be nice if I'd finish some of them, but I do have quite a bit of figures that are at the finish line. They're just about to cross over the finish line, and I'll be ready to show you guys them soon. So please stay tuned for that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I do like this guy a lot, and I was questioning this color, this lighter gray color here, but it is accurate, and I am appreciating it more and more. It just adds a little bit of visual, interest to the figure. It's not just two colors. So I do like that. I feel like I'm forgetting to mention something. As far as the articulation goes, you get a joint at the base of the neck here, which is really nice. And then you get a ball joint with a hinge at the top. You see look how big that neck is. Now I actually think I drilled out the inside of my Matt Murdock head to do the customization that I wanted to. Unless I'm thinking of something else. But anyway, you can get that to look that far back, which is really nice. With the two combined, you can get them to look that far forward. Can't get much more than that, which is pretty cool. And if you shift it, you can make it look a little bit more natural. And then of course, you can swivel side to side with both of them. You get a lot of nice tilting, which is very cool. I definitely like my Daredevil being able to tilt. And actually, if some of you have been watching some of my other videos, I've been collecting the Daredevil comics, and right now I'm reading, I think right now I'm on issue 240. I've been a little bit slow reading, but one of the last issues that I read, they actually described Daredevil as he was fighting. Who was he fighting? I think he was fighting Sabretooth. It was it was issues 238, and he was fighting Sabretooth, and Daredevil goes to follow Sabretooth into the sewers, and he's like, oh, this will be at a good advantage for me because I don't need to see in the dark. And then he realizes that Sabretooth is a cat, so he kind of has night vision, right? So he realizes that he doesn't have much of a advantage, and they, continue to fight, and Sabretooth speaks, and he says something about Daredevil angling his head towards him. So he realizes that he's, angling his ears towards him, and by that, he, figures out that Daredevil can't see. He's, just has a kind of a awareness to him. So I thought that was really cool. I was always under the impression that was something that Charlie Cox added to the role, because, when he was talking about it, he was, he had mentioned how he was kind of studying, blind people and how they interact with the world and stuff like that. Now, obviously, Daredevil's a little bit more of an interesting case because he's not blind. He is blind, but he's pretending to be more blind than he is. So it's a little bit of a, an interesting thing there. But I thought that was really cool that all the way back in the 80s, they had mentioned him kind of angling his head the way that a blind person would to, offer up their ear towards whoever is speaking to them or what they're doing or something like that. So I found that interesting. I thought I'd share that with you guys. But anyway, he has the rotator cuff sort of thing here. This butterfly joint. Now, I have heard some people, I think it was MCU Collector, mention that this wasn't a real butterfly joint, and not to call anybody out, but I don't really agree with that. Now, the way that Hasbro does it, you know, they have their pin that sits inside the torso, and then their cap rotates inside of that torso, right? So they cut out the sides of the torso, or they cut out into the pecs and stuff so it can rotate inside of there. Hasbro is really the only company that I collect anyway that does it like that. I'm sure there's some other figures and stuff or some other toy lines that do it like that, but every other toy line that I collect, whether it's, you know, the base bodies to even a Hot Toys figure, actually that's not true. Hot 1/6 scale figures do it the way that Hot Toys does it. But every other company that I collect, whether it's McFarlane or import figures, they do even Mezco's, they do a system that's more similar to this, where there's a rod or there's a ball joint inside here, whether it's the ball joint connected to the shoulder or the shoulder's connected to the cap and the cap has its own ball joint. Most of them are more like this, where you can get up and down movement and side to side movement. And for me personally, I prefer this setup a lot more than just a butterfly joint. And to give you an example right here, here's this figure. This has a butterfly joint, right? Now, if I were to go straight across, as you can see, I'm getting a little bit more with my comic book Daredevil, especially if I go up at an angle where it peaks. You know, I can get a little bit more in there. But I don't have any shifting. I mean, it moves because it's a two pieces inside of, or one piece inside of another, but it doesn't stay where I want it. This one, I can get him to have really nice boxy shoulders that look a little ridiculous because he doesn't have any traps. Or I can position his arms a little bit further down and pull the cap down to make the figure look a little bit more seamless, make him look a little bit more natural. So it takes a little bit of fidgeting, but I can have him look a little bit more natural, or I can puff his shoulders all the way up if I want to. I can pull them all the way down. It offers up a lot more versatility than just a regular butterfly joint. Now, if this wasn't able to shift, you know, who knows how far that shoulder could go all the way, up. Now you can see it actually is cut more. The point being is that I think these, you know, these caps right here, they offer up a lot more freedom, especially if you're somebody who customizes, because you can go inside there, you can heat this up, pull it out, and then you can thin out the inside of that rotator cuff, and you can get even more movement out of that because you're running into less traffic. You can do it on the inside of the cap, and you can also do it on the inside of the torso. Now, that will make it more gappy, but you can get even more movement out of that. So I've always preferred this method. Also, it makes it easier to pull the arms out. So yeah, that's my personal opinion. You get the, again, you can rotate and all that, all normal shoulder stuff, but you get the bicep swivel, which looks pretty solid. It kind of tucks in there a little bit weirdly, but for the most part, it looks okay. Get the double jointed elbows that are seamless. You can get about as much as you want out of that. And you get the wrist rotation. Actually, you know what? I'm glad I didn't say anything yet. I was going to say that I wish these were vertical hinges, but they are, just like the Daredevil or the Punisher gripping hands. I'm glad that those are vertical, and this one is the same thing. So I'm glad that those are vertical hinges. I think that makes him look a little bit more natural standing there. For the diaphragm joint, you get the rotation and you get the pivot, which you actually can get a lot of nice tilting out of that. That's pretty cool. You don't get much forward. I think you could probably try to get a little bit more out of there. I honestly don't think pulling that, cutting that out will get you more movement. I think maybe it's running into something else, but I could be wrong. I think it's probably hitting something else before it's hitting that hole. I'm not too sure. Again, other people have mentioned, you know, a ball joint down here or or a upside down ab crunch. I think an upside down ab crunch would have been cool, but the fact that it goes off to an angle, you know, Hasbro wouldn't have followed these lines. They would have cut it straight up and down, so I don't think it would have looked as good as some people may have hoped. You know, you see them do it with the Spider-Man figures all the time. They don't follow the lines that they're painting on the figure. Now, this one's sculpted, so it makes it a little bit trickier. I think the best option would have been a ball joint at the waist. And unfortunately, we didn't get that. But you do get the rotation at the waist, and it actually is underneath the belt, which is interesting. The legs move out that far. Not quite as far as you'd like, and they don't really move up too far, but you can rotate out and then rotate in, and that'll get you almost horizontal. That's about horizontal if you rotate it out and use your thigh swivel. Again, there is a thigh swivel. Double jointed knees. This looks a little bit rough, and the cut of the knees is a little bit odd looking, but it's not too bad. Again, no thigh swivel or ankle swivel. The legs move up, move down that far, and then if you pull this up over the top of that, you can get them to move up that far, and then you get a nice ankle pivot, which isn't, it's not, I don't know, it's kind of at a weird angle. It's not too bad. So yeah, for a 26-minute review, my overall thoughts are that I like this guy. Would it have been cool to see a bendy wire? Sure. I mean, they've talked about not being able to do it with the Doc Cox arms. You know, so I don't expect them to do it. Like, there's no real way to put a bendy wire in this and, you know, trust that it will hold up to time. I think well, you know what? Since it's this thin, it doesn't need the holes like Doc Ock's arms do. So this is, I guess they don't really have that excuse. I think with Doc Ock's arms, it's harder because it's thicker. It needs to be a certain size and then needs to be able to hold up under that. It needs to be able to have that retention to hold it. With this, it's so thin and it's gone. With these things, it's so thin that that might not be a problem. But I just don't see them doing it. And if they are able to put a wire in this, they would have to make this thicker, and then these would get thicker. I just feel like that's how that would go. So I'm not too worried about it. I mean, people know how to make their own. It's easy enough to make their own. People do it with Spider-Man's webs all the time, so I don't see it really being a huge problem for me personally. I think it's easier just to have a bendy wire than it's an actual accurate size to what it should be. Like just the wire itself, the way Mafex did it. So I guess we'll take a look at a quick size comparison here. Alrighty, for your first size comparison here, he's compared to the Mezco Netflix Punisher on the left and the newly released Born Again Punisher on the right. Now, this guy has gone through some customization, so don't take too much look at him. He's still in the works. And then, of course, they are both a little bit taller than him. I know Charlie Cox is not super tall. He's about 5'10". I'm not too sure how much taller John Bernthal is. But it looks okay. I think he might be just a little bit tall. But here he is compared to an SH Figuarts Daredevil, or SH Figuarts Deadpool, and a Mafex Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I think these look pretty good. Although I'm positive Ryan Reynolds is taller. I think he's probably 6'2". Just to bring this guy back in, this is how tall he is compared to the most recent Daredevil figure that Hasbro has released, to my knowledge. Like I said, it's either this or the Matt Murdock figure, and also this is just kind of your standard Marvel Legends body. Looks pretty good. Comic book Daredevil a little bit taller, makes sense to me. And here he is compared to SH Figuarts Infinity War Hulk. So you can see that right there. Yep, not too many size comparisons right here. You can see that with a lot of other people's videos. Now, I do want to ask you guys a personal question here. Or not a personal question, but a question for the channel. I struggle back and forth with a background display quite often. And right now, we are using a white background, but it is kind of like a poster board thing. I see more and more people using like their actual desks as a background, and I'm starting to really like it. And I'm personally really liking that look. So just to, now the background here isn't very interesting at all, but move this out of the way. Like, I feel like the figure just looks better lit all of a sudden. Even though, like, for the camera, it should be a little bit more confusing because you know, it has more things to drown out other than just the white background, but like the figure looks like it's better lit now. I don't know. You guys are gonna have to let me know what you think. I would like to do videos like this where it's kind of just more casual and we're kind of going over some of the customs that I'm working on and stuff like that. Nothing that's big, and, you know, trying to just look a little more professional with the white background. I think it just kind of makes it less fun because I'm trying to make it look perfect and it often doesn't. So I would like you guys' opinion on that. If you've watched the whole video from front to end, I really appreciate it. I know there's no reason for me to be talking for 31 minutes, but, you know, here we are. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get out of here. One final remark, if you guys... No, actually, I really like this figure, so I would recommend it. But if you guys like the video, hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell. All that would be greatly appreciated if you decide to do so. And, of course, until next time, true believers.